Welcome from San Diego, California. This interactive teleconference is reaching you in English, Spanish, and Portuguese, live through a unique and complex international telecommunications network via satellite, microwave, and cable. This program brings together distinguished organizations representing education, business, and government in more than a dozen countries in the Americas and Europe. During this video conference, we will examine the dynamic management of risk and opportunity, the business continuity approach, and its implementation. This is the 9th video conference of the year 2002 series entitled Excellence with a Global Flair. I'm Richard Page of the Page Firm, a law firm specializing in international business litigation, arbitration, and mediation, and your moderator for today's program. Before we begin with today's topic, it is my pleasure to announce that the ITC Group is in its final phase of incorporating to its distance learning network our first associates from Africa, who will initially connect and participate through our website, www.itc-group.org. As you know, all of our satellite video conferences are now available as multimedia video courses and on this unique and valuable website, which we will invite all of you to visit. Its catalog of more than 100 courses in both English and Spanish is the largest instructional menu of its kind. We welcome you to use it. We would also like to welcome the Instituto Tecnológico de Tijuana in the state of Baja California in Mexico back into our network. That said, let's move on with today's topic. Organizations in education, business, and government must increasingly be able to manage risk and opportunity as a dynamic process inherent in any competitive and productive environment. Traditional methods identify and quantify these concepts as specific events with static images of impact and benefit cost potential. The business continuity approach applies a dynamic systems methodology that allows decision makers and managers to establish a permanent mechanism for minimizing risks and maximizing opportunities in any kind of organization. It is an essential element for productive success today and increasingly in the future as terrorism and economic and political instability become more global phenomena. This important video conference will review the approach and implementation strategies of business continuity. The invited speakers will present specific recipes and recommendations for decision makers, for managers, and for work teams interested in making this approach the key for their short-term continuous improvement and their long-term productive success. We are fortunate to have with us two experts in the design and implementation of risk management programs for education, business, and governmental organizations. Our first speaker is Robert Lee Brown, president of R. Lee Brown and Associates, an independent risk consulting and mediation firm specializing in leadership models, relationships, risk management, mediation, organizational development, and cross-cultural facilitations. Bob is completing his doctoral studies in leadership at the University of San Diego. He has trained executive staff in developmental supervision and other collaborative design processes. His prior experience includes serving as the Assistant Director of Public Safety, then Risk and Employee Outreach Manager at the University of San Diego. Bob recently completed advanced mediation training at Pepperdine University's Strauss School of Law. Mr. Brown is a member of the United Educators Risk Advisory Committee, which reviews and recommends risk management strategies, programs, and policy for the more than 1,100 member institutions, such as universities, community colleges, public school districts, private schools, and museums. He received his bachelor's in political science from the University of Miami, his master's, his MA in education with emphasis in intercultural processes from San Diego State University. Welcome to the program. Our second guest is a longtime associate of the International Training Center, having been both a speaker and frequent program moderator, Dan Hopwood. He is currently Assistant Director of Business Continuity Planning at Aon Risk Consultants, Inc., the world's second largest insurance broker and professional services firm. Mr. Hopwood specializes in consulting on threat identification, emergency response, crisis management, and business recovery and related training and education. Mr. Hopwood is also a part-time faculty member at the Community Health Education degree program at San Diego State University, where he teaches safety and accident prevention classes. In addition, he has developed professional certificate curricula at the College of Extended Studies. Previous experience includes serving in a variety of consulting positions at Marsh and Barney & Barney. Mr. Hopwood has authored several peer-reviewed papers and has spoken on a variety of safety, risk-related topics throughout the United States and abroad, and is past chairman of the Public Safety Council. He holds a bachelor's degree of science in health science and a master's degree from the Graduate School of Public Health at San Diego State University. Welcome back. Gentlemen, let's start with this question. Considering the new climate around the world of increased focus on security as a result of the September 11 tragedy in the United States and threats of new terror, are there fundamentally new tools that organizations should apply in their business continuity plans? Or are the tools the same but the focus different? What has changed, if anything? Dan, what about in an organizational context?
Yeah, thanks, Dick. I think at the organizational level, what we are seeing is an extremely dynamic change, as Dick mentioned in the introduction. And that dynamic change is focusing organizations on being more tactical, getting away from the static recognition of threat and integrating it into programs and not doing much with that analysis. Now we're seeing organizations that have to be very tactical in regards to the response and recovery from threats that manifest. And I see that as one of the major thrusts as we move forward from these new times.
Bob, on the individual level, do you think people, at least in the United States, are more attuned to security risks?
Yes, thank you, Richard. The events of 9/11 that happened in New York and other parts of the United States has definitely increased the anxiety level, not only for people here in the U.S., but all around the world. We already existed or lived in an environment here in this world which is very fast-paced. We're having to adapt at a level that we haven't had to adapt to before. The event will do a couple of things. First of all, it will present us with a challenge. And the challenge would be to try to really understand the significance of relationships. But the opportunities that it would present to us is the opportunity to really work on the relationships and how relationships impact our day-to-day lives and our business relationships.
Thank you for your excellent insights. Let's begin now with Module 1.
The purpose of this presentation regarding risk management is to frame a discussion that integrates linear, economic-driven approaches of conducting business with the holistic, connective, and empathic realities. Before proceeding, I think it is only prudent to reaffirm how risky and volatile our world is today, and to stress that risk management is a process that transcends cultures. The word risk is commonly used. Executives and administrators talk about competitive risk, market risk, financial risk, operating risk, technological risk, environmental risk, regulatory risk, litigation risk, reputational risk, and political risk. In fact, risks are all around us. Needless to say, managing risk in any organization, regardless of size and location, can be a significant challenge if the organization members lack social skills now referred to as social capital. Before risk can be effectively managed, organizations must recognize its human resources as a deterrent to risk and agree on a common definition of risk that is clearly understood by every stakeholder. Risk is an issue that impacts any organization's ability to meet its objectives. Risk management techniques have evolved over the past decade, and given this reality, the practical implications of risk management is to effectively assess, manage, and monitor how to proactively engage entire organizations, managers and non-managers alike, in a more informed dialogue regarding the psychosocial implications and dynamics involving leadership models and relationships. In this fast-paced global economy, we're expected to do more with less in less time. Psychiatrists state the level of anxiety now considered normal in the average population was seen in the 1950s among psychiatric patients. How we conduct ourselves in the workplace constitutes a salient societal problem. The average person spends the majority of their time, their lifetime, on the job or preparing for a career. Therefore, hours away from work are affected by what happens to them at work. Studies suggest that after working, we spend our remaining time sleeping, eating, and performing other tasks which limit our individual time to do the human things, like enjoying life. Therefore, it is imperative that we promote positive relationships at work in order to create a work environment where time flows and is conducive to emotions. Leaders will need to become more dialectic and connective with their employees. They will have to be more adaptive and flexible and understand the significance of relationships. The impact would drastically reduce risk, and creativity and production would drastically improve. Managers would need the skills to develop, maintain, promote, and encourage a positive and growth-oriented environment for their coworkers to survive in a competitive business environment. Discussions and debate around risk and related controls is not a new issue. Meaningful discussions surrounding this subject began years ago. However, most leaders continue to concentrate on the technical implications, numbers, mysterious languages, charts, graphs, and the bottom line, neglecting the human element. The risk management process is designed to provide reasonable assurances regarding the achievement of objectives in the following categories: effectiveness and efficiency of operations, reliability of financial reporting, and compliance with applicable laws and regulations. Over the last 4 or 5 years, risk management concepts and techniques have evolved at a quickening pace in a marketplace which unfortunately lacks the necessary focus involving organizational theories and valuing the dignity of people. Risks were generally viewed in terms of reflecting primary negative results. Risk management meant making sure that an organization was adequately protected in the event of a catastrophe or a lawsuit. Because risk management encompasses all of the operational, financial, compliance, and strategic issues that an organization might encounter in its attempt to achieve its objectives, I will use this opportunity to briefly explain the various types of risk. First, strategic risk affects an organization's ability to achieve its goals. For example, a small business strategy is to expand its markets while more effectively managing its budget. How this particular business assess and manage its risk and how well it understands its competitive environment in order to effectively attain its strategic goals will require a humane approach in order to be successful. Next, financial risk may result in a loss of assets. How organizations manage the potential market and credit risks that negatively impact that organization's finances is critical, especially in today's marketplace. Third, operational risk affects ongoing management processes. For example, a state government is in the process of implementing new administrative systems, a general ledger system, a payroll and human resources system. The system's implementation involves changes to business processes with respect to transaction processing by decentralized departments, administrators, and staff. Prior to and after implementation of such a system, its impact on the user's efforts to be more productive should be explored. Fourth, compliance risk affects statutory safety requirements, conflict of interest, and the like. For example, CEOs of accounting firms recently have been accused of not complying with laws and regulations, as well as with internally imposed policies and procedures, costing billions of dollars, thousands of jobs, and ruining thousands of lives. Finally, reputational risk affects an organization's reputation, brand, or both. Note that this risk may result from an organization's failure to effectively manage any or all of the other risk types. It involves external perceptions. The examples that come to mind are those of two large, prestigious multinational manufacturers of automobiles and tires, received media attention regarding the safety of their products, the failure of which could have been catastrophic results, therefore affecting the company's reputation. Let me explain a little bit more. Risk can be depicted on a continuum from managing hazards to seeing risk as an opportunity. Although functional emphasis and management boundaries are inherently flexible, risk as hazards represent the historic perspective of managers who are responsible for financial and compliance activities. Opportunity and successful long-term risk management requires a balance between social capital and technology. There's much to be gained by placing more emphasis on a view that also aims to manage the upside of risk and to see many opportunities it presents. Is your organization focused primarily on managing the crisis, hazards or crisis, and being in compliance with laws and regulations? Is your organization focused on controlling uncertainties as well as on crisis management and compliance? Does your organization view risk as an opportunity to enhance stakeholders' value in addition to crisis management, compliance, and controlling uncertainties? Can your organization produce more through value-based management? Ideally, an institution should be doing all of these: managing hazards, complying with laws and regulations, controlling uncertainties, and viewing risk as an opportunity to enhance stakeholder value. Before risk management solutions can be developed, the current drivers of risk must be identified and then evaluated. What does this all mean? What do we know so far? We know that risk drivers are categorized as operational, strategic, compliance, financial, and reputational. But the common denominator in each of these categories is people. Why, in our haste to become more efficient, do we omit people and their experiences, feelings, interactions, and perceptions as the primary risk driver? We spend a dramatic amount of time trying to make machines relate to each other better and more efficiently. Why not do the same with people? The human risk driver directly affects the organization's ability to be successful. This driver can be dynamically modeled to stimulate the effect of each risk so that the organization develops a better understanding of its operating environment. Once leaders understand how risk is defined and identify the full range of risks they face, they should develop a risk management plan. The more effective models exist in those organizations where risk management is designed to function collaboratively, is easily approachable, and encourages dialogue and recommendations for a caring and safe work environment for every employee. Today's organizations approach risk management in ways that can be broadly categorized into 5 levels. Level 1 organizations see little value in proactive risk management. Other than insurance risk management, there are few formal risk management programs in place. Risk control mechanisms are implemented only when unmanaged risk turns into a problem or crisis. Level 2 organizations have a general awareness about risk management and some conceptual appreciation for its value, assuring that not all uncertainties become problems. Although Level 1 and Level 2 organizations do something to monitor their risk, they have no centralized process, no systematic monitoring, and no defined accountability for risk management. Level 3 organizations are aware of risk management and they have set up some mechanisms to monitor risk. For example, they may have an internal audit function. These organizations may also promote self-assessments of risk, often using a checklist. In a Level 4 organization, a broader risk management position is created to review repetitive exposures, assist in risk management within the business, and to keep score. Organizations reaching this level consider both qualitative and quantitative factors. While checklists are used, the customization of these tools and the strength of the entire risk management program rely heavily on the knowledge, judgment, and effective amount of influence of the appointed Chief Risk Officer. At Level 5, the highest level, risk management has fully evolved. In a Level 5 organization, the leader sponsors the risk management program. Working together with the senior leadership team, a risk manager designs processes and training to improve intra- and interdepartmental relations, with the primary focus being employee morale. Let's review some organization models in action to see how each of the above models would actually work, and let us consider how a particular issue might be viewed. Using employee turnover as an issue, let's examine how the organization at each level might view risk. In Level 1 and Level 2 organizations, the questions being asked and the issues on which attention is focused would likely be, if key staff members leave, how exposed will the organization be? What processes do we have in place to mitigate these risks and to fill positions when key staff members leave? In Level 3 organizations, the issue would more likely be, what benefits exist to maintain employee satisfaction? How are we sure that we are competitive in the marketplace, and what steps must we take to assess and monitor employee satisfaction? In Level 4 and 5 organizations, there is an appreciation for turning risk into opportunity by asking and solving such questions as, what can we do to create a program that will attract and retain the best and brightest? Could we adopt employee ideas and actively advertise that we are the best place to work? As noted earlier, risk management organizations evolve over time, gradually moving from Level 1 to Level 5, assuming all goes well at each level. It becomes increasingly important for the organization to realize that unless it has 8 key elements in place, it is unlikely that the organization will become truly effective at managing risk. Let's study these 8 elements. First, there must be acceptance of a risk management framework as a focal point and a common language. Everyone in the organization, including the board, needs to be educated about the risk management initiatives and must understand the process and need to become familiar with the new language of risk. Second, there must be a senior management commitment. Top management must embrace the need for a move towards an integrated risk management framework that encourages caring and understanding and that sets the tone necessary for risk management to work. Third, there must be a risk management owner. A chief risk officer must be designated for an appropriate period of time to implement the program. The chief risk officer would work with each business unit, leveraging its knowledge and that of its operating line individuals. If your organization does not employ a risk officer, hire a reputable, proven consultant. Fourth, there must be communication. The compelling need for an evolution towards an integrated risk management framework must be communicated throughout the organization. The communication needs to be more inclusive. Earlier, we defined risk as an issue that could impact an organization's ability to achieve its objectives. This definition assumes that the organization's objectives have been clearly defined and that they have been effectively and widely communicated. Fifth is training. Stakeholders and all employees must be mobilized with effective training in order to accomplish the organization's risk management goals. And sixth, there must be reinforcement through human resources mechanisms. Human resource mechanisms which establish accountability and reward effective behavior must be developed. The balanced scorecard, which has been discussed in other ITC programs, is a mechanism which allows us to find a method of compensating people or to reward those who display the right behavior. Employers are already compensating staff for good risk management skills. They also are looking for these skills when recruiting. Next, seventh, there must be a risk management process in place. The drivers of risk may change, but the process need not change. The risk management process must identify opportunities for sustainable competitive advantage. It also must permit timely corrective action or action to mitigate the risk. The eighth and last element that must be in place in order for a risk management system to be successful is one of monitoring by internal audit. Internal auditing should play a key role. The internal audit department should be viewed and empowered as an agent to assess and improve risk management practices. So what are some of the common risk management challenges and solutions? Risk management has to be a collective process and thereby should be institutionalized. Galvanize employees via a process of co-determination, such as caring, sharing, and empowerment. Convene groups to discuss strategic and compliance risk and the reputational and financial impacts of those risks. Clearly identify risks associated with major initiatives already underway where the institution cannot afford to fail. Develop a model with appropriate qualitative and quantitative outcomes and indicators. For example, benchmarks. Reward cooperation. Tie risk to strategic objectives in the planning process. Offer solutions, tools, training, and resources. Build action into consensus. Create incentives for managing risk. Manage the opportunities and take advantage of lessons learned from crises. The objective is to demonstrate that effective risk management can minimize future crises. Designate risk management change agents throughout your organization. During the next module of this program, you will have an opportunity to obtain some valuable information via a presentation by Dan Hopwood, of Aon, an expert in the field of risk management and business continuity planning. But before I conclude, I want to reiterate that we exist in a world of relationships. Let's be kind and considerate of our fellow human beings, and please adopt safety-conscious behavior, which is germane to risk management, as a way of existence. Reflect on how this type of behavior will be helpful personally and professionally in our daily lives. Be safe, and by all means, take care.
Let's begin with the first question and answer session. We will try to answer as many questions as possible. Therefore, we ask that only one question be asked per phone call, and that these questions be as brief as possible. You may call the studio directly at the phone numbers or fax which appear on your screen. We remind you to make your phone calls at a distance from the monitor to avoid feedback. While we're waiting for our first call, I have a question, Bob, that I'd like to put to you. I just have recently been in Latin America, in Mexico City, and I was amazed at the security precautions that certain people individually take in their daily lives. You talked about the impact of 9/11 on the individual. Do you think this is really a situation of Americans for the first time waking up to risks that other people in the world, Latin America and Asia and Africa and Europe, have already learned to live with? Are we just behind the curve a little bit?
Absolutely, Richard. We've become accustomed to a certain way of life here. And for years, other parts of the world have experienced some security situations that are difficult, to say the least. But I think we are capable of meeting the challenges in the United States. We're going to have to really develop some strategies, some very comprehensive strategies to work together and to be proactive in the process.
Anything to add?
It's a new world, Dick. It's a new world, and I think that what we really want to do is try to take many of the advantages that we've achieved through organizations and drive them down into the, if you will, the family level, if you talk about at the individual. And it's a unique focus, but it's one that we can achieve.
Our first call is from Cuba. It's from Sania Internet in Havana, Cuba.
I would like to say hi to everybody in ITC. We are calling from Cuba, from La Habana, and our question is the following. When you talk about level 1 through level 5 organizations, could you please explain what characterizations or what characters or traits each level has in terms of investment, development, or what differences do we have in each level?
I think that question is meant for me, Richard. I'll just be brief on that and try to be as specific as I can. To be more comprehensive, however, in my answer, I think it would be probably prudent to submit that question via email. But I think the common denominator there from level 1 through level 5 is people and how we deal with people in the workplace, the relationships that we develop. And that relationship has to focus on dealing with the risk. And I think there's one thing that we cannot replace, and that's the interaction, the human interactions. We can develop, we are working with technology for technology to work better, but we need to really concentrate on how we as individuals work together to minimize our exposures to risk. And I think that's the common denominator from level 1 through level 5.